There is a specific marketing pattern in the American SUV market that has been running for the last 15 years, and that specifically produces disappointed owners at year 7, year 9, year 11 of ownership. Curious. The pattern is called the turbo trap, and if you have ever wondered why the small turbocharged SUVs that promise dramatically better fuel economy than the previous generation deliver worse real-world MPG than the brochure claimed, cost meaningfully more to maintain than the naturally aspirated alternative, and appear on used lots in surprisingly high supply at year 5 or year 6 of ownership, this video is going to explain the specific engineering reality that produces that outcome. Thoughtful. The turbo trap works like this. Manufacturers face increasingly aggressive fuel economy regulations, both from the federal government and from state-level California regulations that most other states have adopted. Rather than invest in the fundamentally different engineering that hybrid drivetrains require, some manufacturers have chosen the specific alternative path of downsizing the gasoline engine displacement and adding a turbocharger to recover the lost horsepower. On paper, that engineering choice looks brilliant. A smaller engine running at lower load produces meaningfully better EPA cycle fuel economy than a larger naturally aspirated engine running at the same load. And when the driver needs more power for acceleration or highway passing, the turbocharger spools up and delivers meaningfully more horsepower than the smaller engine displacement would suggest. On paper. The reality of turbocharged small displacement engine ownership across a decade is meaningfully different from what the paper analysis suggests, and the specific engineering realities that produce the gap between promise and delivery are what this video exists to walk you through. In this video, I am going to name the 6 specific SUVs currently on sale in America in 2026, where the turbo trap applies most decisively, in countdown order from 6 to 1, with the most severe documented turbo trap crisis landing at the end. I am going to walk you through the specific engineering realities that produce the trap, the specific documented data on why the vehicles die early or cost meaningfully more than expected across the ownership window, and the specific alternatives currently on lots in 2026 that sidestep the trap entirely by using naturally aspirated engines or Toyota hybrid synergy drive engineering. Stay with me all the way to the end, because at the end of this video, I am going to name the specific naturally aspirated and HSD alternatives that deliver comparable fuel economy without the turbo trap concerns, give the honest verdict for senior buyers who have asked me to call this specifically, and include the specific engineering caveats that most reviewers on this platform avoid explaining. The brochure gives you the EPA cycle number. The engineering reality tells you which vehicles will still be running at year 12 without a surprise repair invoice. Let me show you which 6 SUVs are the specific traps. Before I name a single vehicle, you deserve to understand exactly which 5 engineering realities produce the turbo trap outcome across a decade of ownership. Because those 5 realities are the framework I apply to every downsize and boost engine currently on the American market. Curious, reality number 1 is the gap between advertised EPA cycle fuel economy and real-world combined fuel economy. Small displacement turbocharged engines produce excellent EPA cycle numbers because the EPA test methodology specifically emphasizes low-load driving where the turbo is not spooled and the engine is operating on the smaller displacement. In real-world American driving, drivers merge onto highways, accelerate up hills, and pass slower vehicles regularly, and every one of those driving events puts the turbo into positive boost pressure. When the turbo is spooled, the engine is drawing fuel to match the boost pressure, which meaningfully increases fuel consumption above what the EPA test predicts. Real-world combined fuel economy on many small turbo SUVs runs 15 to 20% below the EPA sticker number, meaningfully worse than the gap on naturally aspirated equivalents. Reality number 2 is the premium fuel requirement that erases the fuel cost advantage. Many small displacement turbo engines require or strongly recommend premium fuel to maintain the compression ratios and boost pressures the engineering targets. Premium fuel costs approximately 50 cents per gallon more than regular unleaded on average across the American market. On a 15,000 mile per year driving pattern at 35 combined miles per gallon, that premium fuel requirement adds approximately $240 to $250 per year in fuel cost, which specifically erases the fuel cost advantage the small turbo engine was supposed to deliver over the naturally aspirated alternative. Reality number 3 is the direct injection carbon buildup pattern. Small displacement turbo engines almost universally use direct injection because the higher compression ratios and boost pressures require the precise fuel delivery that direct injection provides. Direct injection sprays fuel directly into the combustion chamber rather than into the intake manifold behind the intake valves. The specific consequence is that the intake valves never get washed by fuel during normal operation, and carbon deposits accumulate on the intake valve surfaces across mileage. Documented carbon buildup patterns produce measurable power loss of approximately 1% per 1,000 miles on direct injection-only engines, meaning by 100,000 miles, the engine has lost roughly 10% of original horsepower simply from valve carbon deposits. Reality number 4 is oil dilution risk on cold climate short commute driving patterns. Small displacement turbo direct injection engines running on short cold weather commutes deposit unburned fuel into the oil during the fuel enrichment phase of cold start operation. Across repeated short cold start cycles, the oil becomes contaminated with fuel and loses its lubrication capacity. The specific engineering pattern that produced the Wozniak versus Honda federal class action settlement is the specific example of oil dilution risk. Reality number 5 is the accumulated cost of turbo-specific maintenance items. Turbocharger bearings, wastegate actuators, higher capacity cooling systems, timing chain stress from higher RPM operation. Every one of those turbo-specific maintenance items adds cost across the ownership window that naturally aspirated equivalents do not carry. Now hold those 5 engineering realities in your head, because we are about to walk through 6 specific SUVs where multiple realities fire simultaneously on the same vehicle. Number 6 on the turbo trap countdown is the Hyundai Tucson 2026 Largo with the 1.6-litre turbocharged parallel hybrid drivetrain, and this vehicle earns its place on the avoid countdown because it trips 2 specific turbo trap realities that compound across the ownership window in a way most reviewers do not properly explain. Curious? Let me walk you through the specific case. The Hyundai Tucson 2026 Largo hybrid variant uses a 1.6-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine paired with a 6-speed conventional automatic transmission and an electric motor in a parallel hybrid architecture. Combined output reaches 232 horsepower with 271 pound-feet of torque. Combined fuel economy lands at approximately 38 to 39 miles per gallon combined. Base pricing starts at approximately $33,000 on the blue trim. Thoughtful. The specific 1.6T engineering choice puts the Hyundai Tucson 2026 Largo at the entry point of the turbo trap pattern, and reality number 2 from the battlefield block fires first. Premium fuel is recommended for the 1.6T engine to maintain the compression ratios and boost pressures the engineering targets. Regular unleaded operation is possible but produces meaningful power loss and can accelerate carbon buildup in the direct injection combustion chambers. Assuming 15,000 miles per year at 38.5 combined mpg, the premium fuel premium adds approximately $240 per year in fuel cost over the equivalent regular unleaded operation, which specifically erases the fuel cost advantage the Hyundai Tucson 2026 Largo was supposed to deliver over the naturally aspirated Toyota HSD alternative at pick number 1 of the alternative list. Reality number 2 on turbo trap fires immediately. Now reality number 5 compounds. KBB 5-year resale value on the Hyundai brand runs approximately 42%, roughly 11 percentage points below the Toyota RAV4 platform at 53% that KBB has named best resale value in class for 6 consecutive years. On a $40,000 vehicle transaction price, that 11 percentage point resale gap works out to approximately $4,400 in additional depreciation across the first 5 years of ownership. That specific depreciation gap is documented data, and it is a real cost the Hyundai Tucson 2026 Largo buyer signs up for at time of purchase without necessarily realizing the compounding effect. Now let me be honest about where the Hyundai Tucson 2026 Largo genuinely delivers, because the specific counter-argument to this pick requires acknowledging what Hyundai has done well. The Hyundai brand carries a 10-year/100,000-mile powertrain warranty, plus a lifetime battery warranty for the first owner, which is meaningfully aggressive coverage. The interior on the Hyundai Tucson 2026 Largo Hire trims delivers dual 12.3-inch curved screens and Harman Kardon audio, meaningfully better interior technology than the equivalent-priced Toyota or Honda alternatives. JD. Power reliability on the Hyundai brand has been trailing Toyota, but the gap has been closing meaningfully across recent years. For the buyer who specifically values the Hyundai brand warranty and the interior technology package above the ownership economics, the pick has legitimate consideration, but the turbo trap engineering realities apply. If you are considering the Hyundai Tucson 2026 Largo for the fuel economy claim on the window sticker, the Toyota RAV4 2026 X3 delivers meaningfully better real-world MPG on regular unleaded without premium fuel requirement at $31,900 base, with every documented long-term ownership metric compounding in the same favorable direction. The Toyota Corolla Cross 2026 at approximately $29,000 base delivers cheaper entry into Toyota HSD engineering with the same naturally aspirated Atkinson cycle engine that sidesteps every turbo-trap reality. The Hyundai Santa Cruz 2026 and the Hyundai Santa Fe apply the Hyundai brand identity in different body configurations if the brand preference is genuinely Hyundai. And that was pick number 6. Pick number 5 is the Honda CR-V 2024 with the gasoline 1.5-litre turbocharged trim variant specifically, and this vehicle earns its place on the TurboTrap countdown because it trips reality number 4 from the battlefield block decisively, and the documented outcome is the specific federal class action settlement most buyers walking into a Honda dealership in 2026 do not know exists. Curious? Let me walk you through the specific case, because the Honda brand reliability reputation overall is genuinely earned, and the Honda brand $428 per year RepairPal annual maintenance is the cheapest documented mainstream in America, but this specific engine trim on this specific model has a specific documented concern that the general Honda brand reputation obscures. Pause. The gas Honda CR-V 2024 uses the 1.5-litre turbocharged direct-injection L15B7 engine. That specific engine was the subject of the Wozniak Honda federal class action settlement for oil dilution defects in cold climate states with short commute patterns. The specific engineering concern is exactly the reality number 4 pattern from the battlefield block. Direct injection sprays fuel directly into the combustion chamber. During cold start operation with the fuel enrichment phase active, some of that fuel bypasses the piston rings and deposits into the oil sump. Across repeated short cold start commutes, the oil becomes progressively contaminated with fuel. The oil loses viscosity. Lubrication capacity decreases. And in cold climate states specifically, the pattern accelerates because cold engines require longer fuel. Enrichment cycles and short commutes never bring the engine to operating temperature long enough to boil the fuel back out of the oil. Documented owner complaints and the resulting Wozniak class action settlement approved coverage for affected owners and extended warranty coverage for specific model years. Read that sentence twice, because the buyer walking into a Honda dealership in 2026 looking at a used gas Honda CR-V 2024 needs to understand this exists before signing a check. Now here is the specific critical distinction that this pick specifically requires. The hybrid Honda CR-V 2026 Hybrid Trail S uses a completely separate 2.0L naturally aspirated Atkinson cycle EHEV engine that sidesteps the entire oil dilution concern architecturally. Same nameplate, different engine underneath. The gasoline 1.5T variant carries the concern. The hybrid 2.0 LNA variant does not. Read that sentence again, because the specific mechanic family recommendation on the Honda compact SUV segment is to always pick the hybrid trim and to gently steer any family member away from the gasoline 1.5T trim regardless of the dealer discount being offered. The specific Honda CR-V 2024 gas 1.5T trim is pick number 5 on this TurboTrap countdown because it specifically demonstrates reality number 4 with documented federal legal settlement evidence. But the Honda CR-V 2026 Hybrid Trail S earns a place on the retention champion list because the completely separate engine architecture sidesteps the turbo trap entirely. Alternative Honda picks that inherit the general Honda brand advantage without turbo trap concerns include the Honda Pilot with the naturally aspirated Honda J35 V6 in continuous production since 1996, nearly 3 decades of documented reliability history with 300,000-mile examples in customer hands, the Honda Passport as the 5-passenger sibling on the same NA engine, and the Honda HR-V as the subcompact configuration. And that was pick number 5. Number 4 is the Mazda CX-9 Largo, and this vehicle earns its place on the turbo trap countdown because it trips multiple engineering realities simultaneously, plus an honest brand-level disclosure that this pick specifically requires. Curious? Let me walk you through the case. The Mazda CX-9 Largo uses Mazda's 3.3L turbocharged inline-6 Skyactiv architecture, which is a meaningfully larger displacement than the small turbo pattern that dominates the entry level of the turbo trap, but which specifically applies the same forced induction concept at flagship scale. The plug-in hybrid variant additionally combines the turbocharged engine with a PHEV electric drivetrain, which specifically compounds the complexity concern. Thoughtful Consumer Reports data specifically confirms plug-in hybrid variants produce approximately 80% more reportable problems than self-charging hybrids in the first 5 years of ownership. That specific architectural concern applies to the Mazda CX-9 Largo plug-in variant regardless of the general Mazda brand reputation. But the specific concern that most owners actually experience daily is the 8-speed wet clutch automatic transmission. Read that specification again. 8-speed wet clutch automatic. Not a traditional torque converter automatic. Not a conventional dry clutch dual clutch transmission. A wet clutch engagement architecture that is meaningfully different from the industry standard torque converter automatic engineering choice. Owner-reported documentation across the current generation Mazda CX-9 Largo consistently describes low-speed shudder complaints on the wet clutch engagement, comparing the transmission behavior to a blender with a marble in it. That specific low-speed shudder pattern is not a reliability failure in the strict sense of catastrophic transmission breakdown, but it is a documented owner-reported behavior that meaningfully affects the daily driving experience and produces long-term concerns about the wet clutch engagement mechanism across a decade of ownership. Now the specific, honest brand-level disclosure this pick requires. Consumer Reports released the 2026 overall brand report card in December 2025, and the Mazda brand dropped 8 places compared to the previous year. 8 places. That is the largest single-year negative movement on the current Consumer Reports rankings, and the honest reviewer citing Consumer Reports as a source has to acknowledge the brand-level shift rather than pretend around it. The Mazda CX-9 Largo specifically inherits that brand-level shift, plus the flagship-specific wet clutch and PHEV concerns, plus the turbo trap engineering realities. That is why this pick lands at position 4 on the turbo trap countdown. Now let me be honest about where the Mazda brand genuinely delivers, because that reputation is not entirely misplaced. The Mazda CX-5 2026 holds the RepairPal 4.5/5 reliability score, ranked number 1 of 26 midsize SUVs on the RepairPal database at approximately $447 per year annual maintenance. That is a genuinely earned data point for the specific Mazda CX-5 2026 on a data source measuring a different specific dimension, and it uses a naturally aspirated Skyactiv G engine architecture, rather than the turbocharged flagship engine on the Mazda CX-9 Largo. If your brand preference is genuinely Mazda, the Mazda CX-5 2026 remains a legitimate consideration, with the honest CR brand caveat disclosed. With the Mazda CX-5 2024 on the used market, the Mazda CX-30 2026, and the Mazda CX-50 variants for different footprint preferences. All 3 of the alternative Mazda picks use naturally aspirated Skyactiv G engines that sidestep the turbo trap engineering realities, and that was pick number 4. Pick number 3 is the Infiniti QX50. And this vehicle earns position 3 on the turbo trap countdown because it uses the same Nissan variable compression turbo engine family that anchors the most severe turbo trap crisis at pick number 1 on this countdown, wrapped in Infiniti brand luxury parts pricing on top. Curious. Let me walk you through the case. The Infiniti QX50 uses the Nissan variable compression turbo engine architecture. That specific engine is the same engineering family that anchors the Nissan Rogue NHTSA recall pattern documented at pick number 1 on this countdown. The engineering concept is a downsize and boost architecture that adds electromechanical actuation to vary the compression ratio dynamically during operation, allowing the engine to run higher compression at low load for efficiency and lower compression at high load for boost tolerance. Thoughtful. The engineering ambition was legitimately impressive on paper. The documented outcome across the last 12 months has been federal recall data at scale. And here is the specific reason the Infiniti QX50 earns position 3 rather than sitting further down the countdown despite sharing the same fundamental engine architecture, luxury parts pricing. When a mainstream Nissan Rogue requires warranty service or out-of-warranty repair on the VC turbo engine, the parts costs and labor rates are meaningfully cheaper than the equivalent luxury tier. When the Infiniti QX50 requires the same specific service on the same fundamental engine, the parts costs and labor rates are luxury tier expensive, meaningfully compounding the ownership cost pit that the turbotrap engineering realities produce. Additionally, the Infiniti dealer network in America is meaningfully smaller than the mainstream Nissan dealer network, which specifically fails the long-term ownership filter of whether the dealer network will still be servicing the vehicle in 2040 at the level of accessibility that the buyer originally assumed. Base pricing on the Infiniti QX50 starts in the mid-$40,000 range depending on trim, and higher trims push meaningfully further. Now let me be honest about where the Infiniti QX50 genuinely delivers on paper. The interior refinement, the exterior styling, and the specific driving character are competitive with entry-level German luxury SUVs at a price point below what the equivalent German competitor would require. The Infiniti brand identity as the sporty luxury Japanese alternative has been consistently applied. For the buyer who specifically values the interior refinement and brand identity above the ownership economics, the pick has legitimate consideration for a specific short ownership window. But the turbotrap engineering realities apply. If you were considering the Infiniti QX50 for luxury Japanese engineering with reliability compound advantages, the Lexus NX 350H uses the mechanically identical Toyota HSD drivetrain as the Toyota RAV4 2026, X3 with JD Power 2026 US, VDS Lexus 151PP100 number 1 for 4 consecutive years, the lowest documented problem rate of any vehicle brand in the modern era of the study at approximately $45,000 base. The Lexus RX 2024 applies the same brand advantage in a larger mid-sized luxury configuration. The Acura MDX delivers 3-row luxury capability on the naturally aspirated Honda J35 V6 Heritage, with honest disclosure that Acura does not currently offer a hybrid SUV variant in the 2026 lineup, though the Acura MDX hybrid variant is expected 2027 to 2028. All 3 luxury alternatives sidestep the turbotrap engineering realities entirely and clear every ownership filter that the Infiniti QX50 fails. Pick number 3 confirmed. Pick number 2 is the BMW X5 2024, and this vehicle earns position 2 on the turbotrap countdown because the specific combination of turbo engine architecture, luxury brand annual maintenance costs, and PHEV variant complexity produces an ownership cost pit that compounds meaningfully across a decade of ownership. Curious. Let me walk you through the case. The BMW X5 2024 gasoline trim uses a 3.0-litre twin-turbocharged inline-6 engine. That specific engine is larger displacement than the small turbo pattern that dominates the mainstream turbo trap picks, but it specifically applies the same forced induction concept at luxury scale. Twin turbochargers means twin sets of turbo bearings, twin wastegate actuators, twin oil supply lines to the turbo housings, and twin sets of failure surfaces across the ownership window. size. Reality number 5 on turbo-specific maintenance cost accumulation fires immediately and decisively on the BMW X5 2024. Reality number 2 on RepairPal brand average annual maintenance cost compounds severely. RepairPal anchors the BMW brand at approximately $1,166 per year in annual maintenance across the database. That is 2.7 times what Toyota costs annually at $441 per year and 2.7 times what Honda costs at $428 per year. Every single year of ownership, the BMW X5 2024 owner writes checks to the dealer service department that a Honda CR-V 2026 Hybrid Trail S or Toyota RAV 4 2026 X3 owner does not. Across 10 years of ownership, that annual maintenance gap works out to approximately $7,370 in additional scheduled maintenance costs alone. And that is before factoring in the turbo-specific maintenance items reality number 5 specifically identifies. Reality number 3 on direct injection carbon buildup applies to the BMW twin-turbo direct injection design as well, though BMW has meaningfully improved the intake valve cleaning strategy across recent generations of the engine architecture. And on the BMW X5 2024 plug-in hybrid variant specifically, the additional PHEV complexity concern applies. Consumer Reports data confirms plug-in hybrids produce approximately 80% more reportable problems than self-charging hybrids in the first 5 years of ownership. The BMW X5 2024 plug-in variant is not exempt from that fundamental architectural concern. Now, the specific depreciation reality that compounds the ownership cost pit. KBB anchors the BMW X5 2024 at approximately 35 to 40% 5-year residual on typical trim configurations, on a $70,000 purchase price that works out to approximately $25,000 to $28,000 in resale value at year 5, meaning the buyer has lost approximately $42,000 to $45,000 in depreciation across the first 5 years alone. Compare that to the Toyota RAV 4 2026 X3 at 53% 5-year residual per KBB best resale value data, and the depreciation gap between the two vehicles across 5 years works out to approximately $27,000 in favor of the Toyota RAV 4 2026 X3. Now let me be honest about where the BMW X5 2024 genuinely delivers. Driving refinement at highway speeds, steering feel that is meaningfully more communicative than any Japanese mainstream competitor delivers, body control through fast corners that is genuinely better, interior materials on higher trims that are genuinely luxurious, brand status in certain professional environments and social circles that is real. For the specific buyer who values those attributes above the ownership economics, the BMW X5 2024 has legitimate consideration for a short lease window. But for the buyer signing a check on a decade of ownership, the turbotrap engineering realities apply. If you were considering the BMW X5 2024 for the luxury refinement, the Lexus NX 350h and the Lexus RX 2024 deliver luxury refinement without the turbotrap concerns. The Lexus GX delivers body-on-frame luxury capability with Toyota Land Cruiser Prado heritage architecture, with honest V35A engine caveat that the twin-turbo V6 is meaningfully newer engineering than the 28-year continuous Toyota HSD track record. Same caveat applies to the Toyota Sequoia 2026, which uses the same V35A architecture. The Acura MDX delivers 3-row luxury on the naturally aspirated Honda J35 V6 heritage. All 3 luxury alternatives clear the turbo trap filter. Pick number 2 confirmed. The next pick is the most severe documented turbo trap crisis in the entire American SUV market in 2026. Pick number 1 on the turbo trap countdown is the Nissan Rogue. Serious. This is the most severe documented turbo trap crisis in the entire American SUV market in 2026, and the case is not opinion. The case is federal recall data at scale. Let me walk you through the documented reality. The Nissan Rogue uses the Nissan variable compression turbo engine architecture. That specific engine represents the most ambitious downsize and boost engineering ambition in the current American mainstream market. The compression ratio varies dynamically during operation, controlled by electromechanical actuation of the connecting rod pivot angle. Curious. When the engineering works as designed, the result is impressive. High compression at low load for efficiency, low compression at high load for boost tolerance without pre-ignition. When the engineering does not work as designed, the electromechanical actuation mechanism becomes a failure surface that no naturally aspirated engine carries. And the documented outcome across the last 12 months has been federal recall data at scale that no other engine architecture on the American market has produced in the same window. In 2025, approximately 480,000 Nissan Rogue units were recalled through the NHTSA database for a bearing failure pattern documented across the specific VC turbo engine design. In February 2026, an additional approximately 643,000 units were recalled for a combination of oil temperature spike issues and throttle body fracture patterns on the same engine architecture. That works out to more than 1 million Nissan Rogue units recalled across 12 months on 3 separate mechanical systems. Read that number again. More than 1 million vehicles recalled in 12 months across 3 separate mechanical systems. That is not one bad batch from one production week. That is not a component supplier defect that got caught quickly and remedied cleanly. That is documented federal recall data confirming a systematic quality control problem across multiple mechanical systems on the same fundamental engine architecture over a sustained 12-month window. Reality number 4 on oil dilution risk applies to the Nissan VC turbo architecture. Reality number 3 on direct injection carbon buildup applies. Reality number 5 on turbo-specific maintenance cost applies. Reality number 1 on real-world MPG gap applies. And here is the specific piece of information that makes the reputation versus reality disconnect on this pick particularly severe on top of the raw turbo trap engineering realities. Nissan is currently launching an e-Power hybrid variant of the Nissan Rogue onto the American market that uses the exact same variable compression turbo engine architecture that produced the recall pattern in the first place. The hybrid variant does not solve the underlying engineering concern. It bolts a hybrid drivetrain onto the same problematic engine. Any buyer walking into a Nissan dealership this weekend, considering either the current gasoline Nissan Rogue or the incoming e-Power hybrid variant, is buying into an engine architecture with documented federal recall data across multiple mechanical systems. And the Infiniti QX50 at pick number 3 uses the same VC turbo engine family, which extends the specific engine concern across the entire Nissan corporate umbrella, regardless of which badge the buyer is considering. Now let me be honest about where the Nissan Rogue genuinely delivers on paper. The interior styling on higher trims is genuinely modern. The infotainment integration is competitive. Nissan warranty terms on new vehicles are aggressive. Pricing is often below equivalent Toyota or Honda competitors on the base trim. For the buyer who was already emotionally committed to Japanese engineering at a specific price point below what the Toyota RAV420 26X3 would cost, the Nissan Rogue does look attractive on the test drive. But when the documented federal recall data across 3 separate mechanical systems on more than 1 million units in 12 months is the alternative story the buyer is not being shown, the honest mechanic has to speak up. If a family member walks into a Nissan dealership this weekend, I would ask them to stop, get back in the car, and drive to a Toyota or Honda dealership instead. If a family member was leaning toward the Nissan Rogue specifically for the pricing, the Toyota Corolla Cross 2026 at approximately $29,000 base delivers the entire Toyota hybrid synergy drive advantage that is the specific opposite of the Nissan Rogue engine concern. The Toyota RAV420 26X3 at $31,900 base delivers meaningfully more capability at a purchase price close to the Nissan Rogue. Pick number 1 confirmed as the most severe documented turbo trap crisis on the entire list. So if you have been watching for the last 25 minutes ready to be told which specific naturally aspirated or Toyota HSD alternatives to buy instead of the 6 turbo trap picks, here is the honest verdict by buyer profile with attention to senior buyers and specific engineering caveats. Thoughtful. The specific alternatives that sidestep every turbo trap engineering reality entirely are naturally aspirated engines and Toyota hybrid synergy drive engineering. Informative Toyota HSD anchors most of the recommendations because the underlying 2.5-litre NA Atkinson cycle engine is naturally aspirated, uses dual injection to sidestep carbon buildup, and has been in continuous production since 1997. If you were considering the Hyundai Tucson 2026 Largo or Honda CR-V 2024 gas 1.5T at the entry mainstream tier, the Toyota Corolla Cross 2026 at approximately $29,000 base delivers the cheapest entry into Toyota HSD engineering with standard AWD on the hybrid trim, with the Toyota Corolla Cross 2026 X2 and Toyota Corolla Cross GR Sport variants for additional equipment. The Toyota RAV4 2026 X3 at $31,900 base is the mainstream sweet spot, with the Toyota RAV4 2024 on the used market. The Honda CR-V 2026 Hybrid Trail S at $32,315 base uses the completely separate 2.0 LNAE:/HEV engine that sidesteps the gas 1.5T concern entirely and delivers class-leading interior space. If you were considering the Mazda CX-90 Largo for the flagship 3-row capability, the Toyota Highlander 2026 with Toyota HSD 3-row engineering delivers the specific alternative, with the Toyota Sequoia 2026 for full size, with the Honest V35A engine caveat, the Honda Pilot and Honda Passport on the naturally aspirated Honda J35 V6 30-year continuous production heritage, and the Kia Telluride X2 as the value alternative with 10 years/100,000 powertrain warranty for original owner, with the caveat that Kia warranty does not transfer to second owner, plus the Kia Sorento as the smaller Kia 3-row alternative. If your brand preference is genuinely Mazda, the Mazda CX-5 2026 at RepairPal 4.5/5 midsize ranking with the naturally aspirated Skyactiv G engine is the specific alternative that sidesteps the turbo trap while preserving the Mazda brand advantage, with the Honest CR brand caveat disclosed, with the Mazda CX-5 2024 on the used market and the Mazda CX-30 2026 and Mazda CX-50 for different footprint preferences. If you were considering the Infiniti QX50 or BMW X5 2024 for the luxury tier, the Lexus NX350H uses the mechanically identical Toyota HSD drivetrain as the Toyota RAV4 2026 X3 with JD Power 2026 VDS number 1 for 4 consecutive years at approximately $45,000 base. The Lexus RX 2024 applies the brand advantage in a larger mid-size luxury configuration. The Lexus GX delivers body-on-frame luxury capability with the Honest V35A engine caveat shared with the Toyota Sequoia. The Acura MDX delivers 3-row Japanese luxury on the Honda J35 V6 Heritage, with the honest disclosure that Acura does not currently offer a hybrid SUV variant in the 2026 lineup. Hybrid expected 2027 to 2028. If you were considering the Nissan Rogue for the pricing at the entry level, the Toyota Corolla Cross 2026 is the specific answer. For snow country buyers, the Subaru Forester 2026 Largo Hybrid variant uses Toyota-licensed HSD paired to Subaru Mechanical Symmetrical AWD, with the Subaru Forester 2024 on the used market, the Subaru Crosstrek 2026 and Subaru Crosstrek 2024 for smaller footprints, the Subaru Outback for larger station wagon, the Forester Wilderness 2 for off-road, and the Impreza for sedan body. Now let me speak directly to senior buyers who have asked me to call this specifically. Senior buyers are the demographic most likely to keep the vehicle for the full ownership window where turbo-trap engineering realities compound the most severely. For seniors specifically, walking past every one of the 6 turbo-trap picks and choosing a naturally aspirated Toyota HSD, Honda J-Series V6, or Subaru Boxer alternative buys the specific ownership predictability that fixed retirement budgets require. The Toyota Prius 2024 is where the entire Toyota HSD lineage started in 1997 for sedan preference. The Toyota Camry Hybrid 2024 delivers HSD in a sedan body. Every specific alternative on this list clears the turbo trap filter decisively. Before you go, I need something specific from you in the comments below. because the next video on this channel is going to be built directly on the data you leave here. Curious, if you currently own one of the 6 turbo trap picks from this avoid countdown, I especially want to hear from you. Drop your model year, your trim, your current mileage, your state, and any specific ownership event that either confirmed or challenged the engineering reality I walked through. If you own a Hyundai Tucson 2026 Largo and you track your fuel economy and premium fuel costs, tell me your specific real-world MPG in winter versus summer and whether the premium fuel premium has held at the $240 per year level I described. If you own a gas Honda CR-V 2024 with the 1.5T engine, tell me whether you have experienced the oil dilution pattern in cold climate conditions and what your dealer service experience has been. If you own a Mazda CX-90 Largo, tell me your real-world experience with the 8-speed wet clutch transmission at low speeds and whether the shudder pattern has developed on your specific unit. If you own an Infiniti QX50 or a BMW X5 2024, tell me your actual annual maintenance costs across ownership and whether the RepairPal figures I referenced have held up in your experience. If you own a Nissan Rogue with the VC turbo engine and your specific unit has not experienced any of the 3 recall categories, tell me your model year and mileage so I can track the pattern. And if you cross-shopped any of the 6 turbo trap picks against a naturally aspirated or Toyota HSD alternative and went with the turbo pick anyway, tell me what tipped the decision. The patterns we find in these comments are how I refine future engineering-focused videos and how I catch improvement patterns in specific model years before they show up on the aggregated databases. Do not just leave a thumbs up. Leave your specific ownership math. And I want to leave you with 2 things that are coming. The first one is that I have been investigating something specific about the incoming Nissan Rogue e-Power hybrid variant, and what I am hearing from supplier sources suggests the engineering revisions Nissan is making to the underlying VC turbo engine architecture for the hybrid variant may or may not address the specific concerns that produce the recall pattern. When that video drops, it is going to walk through what the engineering changes actually are, whether they address the fundamental architectural concerns, and whether the incoming e-Power variant deserves to be treated differently from the gasoline variant on this avoid list. The second thing is that Honda confirmed in the May 2026 business briefing that 15 next-generation hybrid models are coming by 2030, with a 30% reduction in production costs and a 10% improvement in efficiency. If Honda delivers on that roadmap, the Honda Pilot and Honda Passport arriving in 2027 and 2028 could receive hybrid drivetrains that pair the Honda brand annual maintenance advantage with genuine hybrid engineering that sidesteps every turbo trap reality. Either way, I will be here breaking it down the moment the news lands. Subscribe so you do not have to come looking. I will see you in the next one.